else would like to get on the list here? Looks like we got about 6 minutes before AOI should show up. Haven't heard the peep out of John. Anybody else want to get on the list? Well, let's go back to the top. Chuck, what else have you got?
Yeah, very good. I got to, sorry.
Uh-oh, flame out.
Well, no, it's a mouse out. I have a very lazy mouse, and if he doesn't get exercise regularly, he goes to sleep. So I couldn't use the KFS, my personal remote receiver system, known as KFS, 11 miles away. Usually has the identical signal. Antenna pattern notwithstanding. So what else is going on? Well, I did a household repairs while my wife was down in Southern California, probably seeing one of her sisters for the last time. She's got cancer and she's in hospice. And I stayed home and worked on various things. And actually, sometimes the simplest electronic repair, if you have a plan, you execute it, and it actually works. No matter how trivial, it's satisfying. Now, I'm not talking about as simple as plugging in your electric razor, but a little more complex. But this old Kendall Fire tablet with the dead battery, it's very difficult to open it up, but I found one of these batteries on eBay, and I just popped it in there after spending probably 2 hours getting the old battery out, and the darn thing fired right up. So I'm gonna ride on my coattails and enjoy that. And Mike, yes, the cod has got to be ready. And the one mistake I don't want to make in the marriage is not showing appreciation for my wife's cooking. But I'll probably excuse myself and bring the fish dinner downstairs here. All right. So over to you, Mike. That's the story on the cod. It might sound like a fish story, which it is. W7MS and 6AF.
Well, I'll just take a brief one. I think it's getting ready for showtime, W7MS here. Well, fine, Chuck, and fine on the power drop explanations, Larry. That's quite involved. I've had 2 issues way back when, and maybe I'll save my exciting stories for some future time, but totally understand between you and Mike, and it's ready kilowatt at work, W6 WUH W7MS.
Well, I can't really complain. I think that drop has been there since about 1970, so it's 55 years old, and it's been supported by the limb of a tree all that time, blowing in the wind, and we get some big storms up here. So I can't complain, and they were Johnny on the spot. I mean, an hour after they called them, they had a troubleshooter here, and an hour after that, they had a crew out here, and they worked from 8 or 8:30 till midnight to put that thing up. And those guys are good. Whatever you say about PG&E, the IBEW linemen are the greatest. Well, we got about 2 minutes before 7 here. K6KY, John, are you on board?
I am, but I'm having all sorts of problems. Does the audio sound okay?
I kind of got a bunch of garbled stuff, but I know you're there.
Sounds good. Sounds great, John. Can somebody give me a report? I'm having a hard time copying. Sounds great.
Yeah, you're doing fine up here, John.
Sounds good in the Bay Area. Just had all sorts of problems today, including this wreck. So, and I'm not copying too well. I've got a lot of QR Nancy, so it's going to be a rough go for me. And in the process of trying to get ready for this thing, I turned on the 3001 and something blew in it, and it took out the breaker. So that took out my computer, which is now rebooting. It's been one of those days. I think I'm ready, although it's going to be hard copy. I'm going to try to get the list in case it's get away.
All right, well, I'll go slow and phonetically with the list. I think you know most of the names. Maybe I'll skip those unless you ask me for them.
It'd actually be better just to give the names out and have my list out, my cheat sheet.
All right, are you ready to copy, John?
I am. So far, right now you're 2-5.
Okay, number 1, N6AF, Chuck in Redwood City.
Again.
Okay, I'm gonna just listen after each one and holler if you don't get it.
Sounds good.
Number 2, W7MS, Mike in Reno.
Got it.
Number 3, W6THW, Mike in Rockland. Number 4, W6 Delta, Quebec, Dennis in Inyokern.
Okay.
And you know who's next, KF6QNG, Lisa.
Of course, KF6QNG. Hello, Lisa, in the background there. Go ahead.
Number 7, WA6WA9, KIB. My apologies to Bob.
It's a common mistake. Go ahead.
Number 8, WI6R, Dave in Kingman.
WI6R Dave, right?
Correct. Number 9, NY6L, Jay in Hesperia.
Okay, I got NY6L.
Number 10, N5DIM, Delta India Mike, Tony in Sacramento.
Oh, you took a dip. I didn't get that one.
November 5, Delta India Mike, Tony in Sacramento.
Okay, N5DI, and I missed the last letter.
M is in Mike.
DIM?
Correct, Delta India Mike.
Okay, now on to the next.
Number 11, K6ZTA, Vaughn.
Okay, got Vaughn.
And number 12, KB7LOQ, Art.
KB7LOQ, Art.
And I just heard K6LGL chime in there.
W6LGL, yep.
And yours truly.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm really having a hard time copying. Who am I speaking to?
You are speaking to Larry, W6WUH.
Larry, I don't even recognize your voice because the conditions are so lousy right now. Where would you like to be?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'll put you as, I think I'll put you as number 1, W6WUH, Larry. And I'm really discombobulated, guys. I have to apologize, but you know what? I think everybody is familiar enough that we can maybe cheat a little bit and skip the prologue and just go right into it. I've had a kind of a rough day, and now conditions are reflecting that. Anyway, this is K6KOI, and I'm in Del Mar. I'm using an SR2000, which is acting up, and I think right now it's full output, so it's runs at 1100 watts. So I think my issue with the SR2000 might be the metering in the screen position. I think the metering is gone haywire. And because it's not showing screen current, and it should. So I'm going to read the question of the evening, and then we're going to turn it right over to get to work here. So the question is one for people who like to get their hands a little bit dirty and work on this old stuff. And if you are one of those folks, what kind of precautions, if any, do you take to protect your vintage power supply? Well, the reason I thought of that is because my good friend Mark, ND6X, is in the process, I think it's actually completed now, modernizing and rebuilding two 516 F2 power supplies, Collins power supplies, and he made them really special. did some really good things to him, and as we get into it, maybe I'll mention some of the things that he did. Maybe even though he didn't check in, he might be listening. Who knows? So let's start with W6WH. We'll turn it over to N6AF. We'll turn it over to Mike, W7MS, and I'm going to keep it 3 for right now because of condition. Take it away, Larry.
All righty, K6KOI and the group W6WUH. I don't really take any particular precautions. When I'm rebuilding power supplies, I always religiously use new capacitors and new rectifiers. If new tubes, make sure that's all fine. Clean everything and religiously make sure that all the grounds are nice and shiny bright, and don't trust any 60 or 70-year-old shafty grounds to be good. That's basically it. Of course, we just had all kinds of trouble here with, and a lot of gear was saved by having power strips with surge connectors, and I do have power strips here, but my biggest power supplies and amplifiers plug straight into the wall. So I think the biggest thing is that I have a good dedicated wiring here, good stiff wiring, a dedicated 20-amp circuit for the radios, and dedicated 240-amp circuit for one amplifier at least. So other than that, I can't really think of anything special I do. I do not use bucking transformers or any of that. I'm out on a sub panel here 100 feet away from the house, so there's enough voltage drop that my line voltage is never above 120. So I don't really worry about it. It's more typically around 115, 118. So I think the answer to that is I don't really do anything special, but I take some more surge protectors. Over to you, Chuck. N6AF, W6WUH.
Okay. W6WUH, N6AF. And I apologize. I didn't, John, you took a fade when you read the question, but I think it was, what precautions or extra steps do you take when rebuilding, I assume, vintage power supplies, meaning high voltage power supplies? So I just wrote a quick list here as I was buttoning up my little repaired Kindle tablet. So make sure I'm not tired when I'm working on it. That's number one, and not compromised by more than maybe 1/4 of a glass of Merlot. And I'm not angry. It's kind of like the self-checks before you start a long drive. So it's a better way to not electrocute yourself, even though, of course, most of the work is done with it disconnected from power. But anyway, changing out the caps and whatever else may require replacement is always a good idea with an old power supply. But triple check the wiring before you bring it up. And resistance check, so you see that there's no obvious, like the 850 or 3 kV line is directly shorted. I mean, crazy things like that. And then bring it up slowly on a variac. So those are my steps. And then the last step is if it doesn't blow up in smoke, then I can have the rest of the glass of Merlot. So over to W7MS from N6AF on the KWM2 tonight.
Well, thank you, Chuck. N6AF and the vintage sideband roundtable W7MS Mike and Reno. Well, some good comments to this point, and I am going to give my equipment rundown since I didn't do it in the pre-net, but this evening running the famous Cubic Astra 103 matching power supply. I even have the antenna tuner, the ST3B, which of course is not really doing anything. It's in the bypass mode, and that's driving a Kenwood TL922A amplifiers to somewhere around 1,300 watts out, highly modified, including a step start circuit. While we're talking about power supplies, And I think here is really no power conditioning other than MOVs at the power drop, at the distribution box, and at various locations in power strips or maybe actually internally added to equipment. But I think power conditioning on the stereo gear, absolutely. Well, we do that. But I think one point is a lot of power supplies, elderly power supplies, there's no safety ground. So that's a standard SOP for me, is to add a 3-wire cord with a safety ground. It's quite amazing to have a steel chassis and no absolute safety ground, which of course to some degree can create its own issues with ground loops, etc., with equipment, but that's all part of configuration. And I think some of the other comments, I think, where I read the hard copy question, and that has to do with filter capacitor replacement, and I do tend to up the value of filter capacitors, especially in the voltage multiplier circuits, like the common voltage doubler circuits used, I think specifically maybe in this amplifier and other devices, to increase the energy storage capacity and also the time constants in the power supply to reflect maybe a little higher average DC voltages for the plate supplies. But of course, that doesn't apply to capacitor input filtering, since if you raise the filter capacitor in a whether it's a resistive or a choke circuit, a pi net circuit, etc., you will raise the standing B+ voltage, which is not wise. It's always wise to stay within the parameters. So that's probably too much information, but a few comments here, and we'll listen to the experts here on frequency. So back to you, John, and sorry that you're having such a challenging day, but a relatively good signal into Reno, and nice to hear you this evening. K6KOI, W7MS.
W7MS, K6KOI. Well, Mike, it is one of those days, but if you didn't have bad days, then you wouldn't have anything to measure really good days from. So I'm looking at it as a glass half full, but the day included, actually yesterday as well, I lost the band switch cord on my KWM2A, and it is a bear, an absolute bear to replace. My knuckles are all bruised, poor me. And then when I finally got it going, well, I'm not going to I'd take too much time to tell you the whole story. Suffice it to say there were other issues, and I think they are resolved. I got everything working. I put it in the operating position, turned on the 30L1 and smoke. So it's just one of those days. Over to another mic, W6THW, and he'll turn it over to W6DQ, Dennis. I bet Dennis has something to say about using a bucking voltage. And then over to Lisa, KF6QNG. So take it away, Mike, K6KOI.
Okay, K6KOI. And vintage group, W6THW. Very fine, all the way. Copying everybody good. And I was going to mention this story on me on power supplies is, first of all, I unplug them. Second of all, I take the cover off. Third of all, I check everything in it. Usually I'll just replace capacitors, a little higher value now that they make the capacitors, so small, and whatever else is wrong. That's the whole story. Nothing else do I do but try to fix it. So it goes to, well, I don't know if it goes back to you, net controller or not, but anyhow, I have who's behind me, and that's W6DQ.
Take it away there, Dennis.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. W6THW and the K6KOI there. W6DQ. Here's Dennis and Indio currently about 66 degrees. It's cool enough. And beautiful day today, clear skies, light breeze, just the way we love it out here. It was wonderful. Got up to the mid-80s. Just a great day. Let's see. Rig tonight is the usual S-Line number 1, 75S3C, 32S3A, and the 30S1. Out through the Palstar HF Auto tuner to a Ballon, out through Ballon C, up to the 540-foot horizontal loop. And we're using an SM3 Collins microphone. The 30S1 was acting up on Friday. It seems to be behaving itself today. We'll see how it goes. I had it running for quite a while over the weekend, and it was pretty stable. So we'll see if it's gonna. I think I know what the problem was, and I corrected it, and we'll go from there. So yeah, I do have some comments about this, and interesting, John, that you bring up Mark. I've had some conversations with Mark about the 516F2 power supplies. And there's some myths running around that I will share as well. First off, yeah, a lot of this old gear is designed for lower line voltage of the years that it was manufactured. So it's a nice idea to try and keep them down so things don't get overheated. And some of the tricks with Collins, some of the big tricks are guys pull the rectifiers out in the 516F2 power supplies, replace them with solid state rectifiers. That's great. Less heat, but you tend to stress the transformer with inrush current, so that can be a problem. It can be an expensive problem. So there's some other ways to do that. Step start with solid state, but you also, by putting in solid state rectifiers, you raise the high voltage beyond what may be the specs for the final, in this case the 6146s. So, the better trick, if you do solid state, is to use the old filament winding for the 5U4 and 5R42 5-volt winding. You can drop the line voltage by 5 volts by using it as a bucking transformer, and that's a real effective way to bring it down. It doesn't solve the inrush current problem, but it does solve the high voltage problem, getting the voltage down manageable. And comment about increasing capacitance, that's okay in some instances, but in other instances that's going to cause other problems, because you have a power supply, you can have a resonant circuit there. Changing the value of the capacitor can change the resonant frequency. Typically you're going to want that power supply to resonate. If it's a full wave power supply, you want it to resonate at 120 hertz so that you get better smoothing on your filter. So if you change that, that's a problem. Let's see. I was going to comment about a couple other things. I'm trying to remember his call sign. For the life of me, I cannot remember. It's Bill Feldman out here in the Antelope Valley. I met him years and years and years ago. He's now a Silent Key. You guys that have been around Collins for a while, Mike, I know you know Bill Feldman's old call sign, Mike MS. But he became a Silent Key, and one of the things I got from his estate was this beautiful little piece of test equipment for the shop, which is a buck boost box that has a bunch of plugs on it that are labeled as to what they can be used for, and it's just a bunch of transformers that are just making the voltage go up or down on the line. And I think it's just a really nice, useful little gadget to have around. The only other thing, the one myth I want to debunk about Collins, and I'm sorry I'm going on so long, but this is an important one. You mentioned about switched outlets, John, in your question of the evening, and I absolutely agree with that for this equipment, but not for the same reasons that most people use it. The myth is that actuating the Collins, the power switches on the S-Line, makes the switch contacts go bad. Well, it's not the contacts that go bad, it's the actual switch mechanical mechanism itself that fails, because it's really Mickey Mouse. And the contacts don't necessarily fuse or go bad, but the switch will just stop working because the mechanical bit breaks. What I use, and using a switched outlet strip is a great idea, but the one that I have, and I've talked about these before, and they're made by Digital Loggers is the name of the company. You can find out about these things at webpowerswitch.com. Webpowerswitch.com. It's 8 switched outlets. The power outlet, or the whole unit itself, is actually a web server that you connect to on your network. It can be wired or wireless, and you can control each outlet individually with a web browser. And this thing is wonderful. I mean, it's a wonderful unit. I've got them everywhere. All of this equipment is on those. I can turn it on from inside the house an hour before we come out here in the evening, so everything's all warmed up by the time I get here. But it protects that switch. So the switches are always on, but not to protect the contacts, but to protect that fragile mechanical bit that's part of the setup on the S-line. That's pretty much what I got here for tonight. I know I went on way too long, but I wanted to share all of that. And there's other tricks with the 516F2, replacing taking the line voltage off of the power switch on the radio itself and using a relay and running it low voltage. But that really doesn't solve the problem with the mechanical failure of the switch. All it does is reduce the voltage on the contacts, which really isn't the problem to begin with. So anyway, having said that, John, thank you for hosting this evening, and sounds great down there. You're sounding good. Big signal, 20 to 30 over here. And Larry, thank you for taking the earlies. And it goes over to Lisa, KF6QNG, and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable, W6GQ.
All right. Well, thank you, Larry, for taking the early. Thank you, John, for hosting. I don't have an answer to the question, so I'll make mine quick. Hope everyone has a great evening. And let's see, it goes back to John. K6KOI from KF6QNG.
N6PY.
KOI. And Dennis, thank you so much. You did not take too much time. The information you gave was very valuable. And one of the reasons I asked the question is because I had a feeling you'd have some good answers and I might learn something. And I've got to tell you, I did. What I learned is that changing the value of the filter capacitors could have an effect on ripple that is unintended by creating a resonant circuit with the choke, I suppose. And that's really good information, something I'd never thought about. Something I had thought about is that if a lot of guys will really increase the capacity, the capacitance, because of the small sizes, and they can get away with fitting in a much higher value. And the problem with that is it exacerbates. One of the problems is it exacerbates inrush current. And I'll say something about inrush and then I'll turn it over. One really very simple way to mitigate that issue, and that is the inrush issue, is to use a thermistor. And you can get 3 of them for $12 from Amazon, and it'll work quite well in terms of putting 5 ohms in the AC line until it heats up, which is pretty instantaneous, and then it drops down to 0 or thereabouts. So, onward. Let's go to WA9JID, and thank you, Bob, for arranging for Larry to take the early, and Larry, thank you for taking the early. And then over to Dave, WI6R, and to Jay, NY6L. And Jay, you might have something to say about three-prong AC wires and SB33s. I think you might have something to say about that. Over to Bob.
Okay, John, K6KOI in the group, WA9JID, Bob over here in La Piñata. Yeah, signal factor tonight, copying everybody pretty nicely, no QR9, no real noise here, so seems to be a pretty good night. Let's see, I'm talking into a Kenwood MC50 microphone, they're on into my HT32B by Helicopters. And my just repaired today SX115, a receiver. So, sorry to hear you're having electrical problems. Mine is the opposite. I've got successful repair going. So it turned out, the receiver went deaf a couple of weeks ago. And after checking a few of the most obvious tubes, I went to the next level, and it turned out to be the crystal oscillator, which is a 12AT7. which goes into the first mixer to get the mix signals with the stage coming out of the RF amp. So with that in bad shape, there was nothing to mix with. So anyway, plugged a new one in, 12AT7 radio probably from 1961. Guess you can't even get 65 years out of a 12AT7 anymore, so. They don't make 12AT7s like they did when I was a boy. So wait a minute, I guess I was a boy when that was made. But anyway, the one I replaced with came from Vaughn, K6ZTA. My final feature gave me Vaughn. It looks like it's kind of a new old stock RCA, though it has some green paint on it, a great button. So actually everybody seems like it got a little bit of a British accent, so that's probably wrong. Anyway, I love having my SX115 back. I love the audio on it. And although while I was down, it did give me a chance to use my backup receiver, my 75A4. So if you can get a chuckle out of using an A4 as a backup receiver. Anyway, on to the question. I don't do anything special. I haven't worked on power supplies that much. They scare me a little bit. And I've let some rigs go just because there was just too much voltage in there. And but I have receivers that done some cap replacement, and let's see, managed to get a nice shock off of the power supply for my SR150. I've been scared to go back to that for a while too. But I don't automatically replace electrolytics just because I got a piece of gear. And I paid the price for that once or twice with smoke, but I was dangerous free, so I'm not advising anybody else to do that, but just being honest here. Okay, that's all I can tell you on that. Over to WI6R from WA9JIB.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, WA9JIB in the group WI6R. Dave here in Kingman, Arizona. Just got back from Colorado, 9-hour drive today. So if I fall asleep later on, I don't know why. Anyway, boy, I want to turn the question around just a little bit. For me, it's first of all, protect me from the high voltage power supply. That would be number one protection. My dad used to say, keep your left hand in your back pocket until you know what you're working with. The second is that I always put 3-wire power cords on old vintage radios, and that includes my Sideband Engineers SB33. It had a neon bulb on the back panel, so you could plug it in and figure out if the chassis was hot or not. And that's not satisfactory enough for me, so I just wired it correctly to begin with, and then don't worry about it with a 3-wire cord. I used to have an auto transformer which would run anything in the shack because we did have 125 volt AC to get it down to 115 volt, and it would run everything, including the linear, and it was surprisingly inexpensive to do versus playing with different radios and different power supplies. So that was the simple solution. I think it was under $300, and it would run everything, including the amplifiers. Here in Kingman, Arizona, we have a brand new power substation here, and I have 115 volt AC, so I'm a happy camper. Yes, I replace diodes and capacitors, and I've been known to replace rectifier tubes with diodes. Probably everybody's aware of 866s, and those definitely get replaced. The other thing is when you do have higher voltages, sometimes if you go to diodes and you had a rectifier tube, you can maybe able to use the filament winding as a bucking on the AC input, and that sometimes will help you. And yes, I've installed stuff that will use a relay to switch the AC, and yes, Dennis is absolutely right. It's the mechanical part of that switch which is well, gosh, they were sold everywhere for, 25, 30 years, those little switches that clipped on the back of those controls, and just about everybody, including Central Lab and so on, made those. And you can buy those today. The problem is the Collins ones work backwards, mechanically, backwards from the ones that were typically on the controls that control things like the KWM2 power switch, which I guess is the one that's most famous for mechanically failing. And specifically on the Collins 516F-2, I'm using the Radio Farm boards more recently on those power supplies. And yes, they also include a relay to switch to AC power. But that typically, for all of my stations, I use a power strip. And I come in the room and turn the power strip on to do that. And I have also used the remote control switches, which are pretty simple things that are inexpensive, that are most popularly installed in older homes that have hall lights where there's a switch at each end of the hall, and it's often a real pain. So you can install one of these things inside the far extreme one, and you can control the lights however you want from one control or the other. And the web power strip is really cool. I like Dennis's idea with that. That works out really fine. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jay, who probably has some other good ideas, and I'm going to go and load some stuff for my truck before it gets too late here. So NY6L and the group from WI6R.
Okay, Dave, very good. WI6R, NY6L, Jay here in Hesperia here. And equipment we're running here tonight is a Swan 100 MXA going into a kind of a rare mobile solid-state radio, Metron MA1000. It's got 8 transistors there in the final there, going at a good 75 amps. Okay, well, let's see here, Dave. You've kind of took my thunder on the SBE 33. So I'll just make it short and sweet. Some years ago, I had an issue where I had regarding SBE 33, replaced a bunch of working on the power supply, the things from the power supply, and it's a semi-hot chassis. So yes, it's very important for that bulb to be out. So when you plug it in and ground that wire, well, it didn't work out that way. It was actually wired on the wrong side of the cord, and that created problems. So yeah, long story short, I tried a isolated variac, problems away, plugged in, problems back. What the heck could be wrong? Well, it's the way the bulb is wired. So I put it on the correct side and plug on the way. And plan on wiring and pretty strong cord to that, make sure it's done on the correct side, and put the problems away. Unless the outlet is wired correctly, so we'll have to create problems as well. And Dennis, thank you very much for all that neat, good information there on the Collins gear, because I have a Collins S line here too, and switches here, and I'd like to preserve those. So I do have the equipment here on a strip that I can turn on and off. Toggle switches back. So I don't have to mess with the Collins equipment. Okay, over to back to John, K6KOI, NY6L, Jay here in Hesperia.
KK6R.
KK6R. Hold on a second. The computer at that time, I was able to copy everybody because I tuned in to KFS, and good evening, Bob. I added you to the list. KK6R. So Jay, one other thing about the SD33 I'm sure you're aware of is it has no transformer. So, yeah, it really does, it really is kind of dangerous, and it's one of the first things one should do with that puppy is the 3-plug wire, the dedicated ground with the 3-prong wire. So, let's see, what else? Before I turn it over, I had another comment or two. Oh, I forgot to mention, Chuck, your final solution to when everything goes wrong, Merlot, that works. I prefer to have some other type of wine, but, you know, a glass of wine after the roundtable tonight is beginning to sound pretty darn good. And I think I might just do that. So, let's see. Any other comments before I turn it over? Bob, I think that changing the cap is a good idea, and I suspect that my 3001 maybe has the cap that went bad. I'll find that out tomorrow when I get it off the bench, off the operating table into the bench, and see why the sparks were fine. And let's see. I guess that's about it. Turn it over to the next few people. N5DIM, Tony, to take it. We'll turn it over to K6ZTA, Vaughn, and then over to Art. Art, I understand you've got some equipment recently. You might want to mention something about that. So, over to Tony, K6KOI.
K6KOI and the group N5DIM. I'm here. I got a good copy on everybody tonight. I put up a new antenna, one of those ZS BKWs or whatever, ZS6 BKW antennas a couple weeks ago, and I've kind of got it orientated to where I should be doing all right, headed down south there, and put it kind of locked it in on this operating position over here. And while everybody's been talking, I'm running the Swan 500 tonight, and I really like this one. It's a 500CX that was given to me, and I completely went through it, and the thing runs like a champ, and it doesn't drift or anything. I really like it. But I pulled a Kenwood TS530 out of this section and put my Drake TR4 over here, so later this week I'll use it to check into the Drake users net. Not much has been going on here. I do have a Swan 240 that I have out in the garage. I need to go through it, and I've got all the parts and pieces to rebuild the matching power supply for it, but I just haven't been up to it here lately, and I want to be on my A game when I'm digging around on that. Also, I don't know if with that 3001, I don't know if you want to change out the high voltage board or not, but I know Harbach sells one, but there's a dude on QTH. If you just plug in 3001, you'll see him. But he's up here in the Bay Area, but he sells a really good board and high quality caps. And I used his kit, my 3001, and it runs like a champ. In fact, I picked up another 3001 at the last swap meet I went to that's out there in the lineup for future projects. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Vaughn. If you got a copy on this K6ZTA N5DIM to take it. All right, N5DIM, K6ZTA. Very good. Thank you for taking the earlies there. Let's see, Larry. And for KOI, John, can you take the wheel here? Yeah, running 100 feet barefoot behind. And Steve is the Drake
35 feet. So, anyway, as far as the quick and easy is concerned, I haven't fiddled with power supplies, but rebuilt the one on my ICO 753. And that seemed to work okay. But that's the only power supply that I've got in my hands with. And luckily I haven't had a problem with that. So cross my fingers here. And try not to double cross myself. So with that I'm going to turn it over to Art. 87 LOQ, 26ZTA.
K6ZTA in the group. KB7LOQ. Oh man, it's been Charles Nichols here, but that's the time for work because I went down to Arizona 5 weeks ago, stopped at Mark, picked up the 41mm amplifier, the 1810 sideband converter, National 300 receiver, and a HRO 50 receiver that, according to Mark, had been restored by Wayne Springs. That's pretty special. Went through the E41 cord, heavy duty cord, runs up 110, and obviously replaced the capacitor, equalizing resistors, anything else that was associated. One thing we didn't do was replace the SO239. Work down there, I brought it home, I put it up, it's 85 pounds, I put it up on a step ladder up the shelf, and coax connected that. It took it down last night, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock I had those coax connectors replaced, went back together this morning, listened to it, tonight when I tried to load it up, I thought it was getting snow. Last week I tried to get off the plane in these 3 days, and the high voltage power supply was wrong. The barefoot turns out that I just had to push the cabinet lid down, interlock first, so I'm on that tonight. And after I checked in on the early tonight, my SX115 went quiet. All went up and everything went quiet. And it kind of frustration the thing on the list started working. There's another project. I've put probably 70 to 80 hours ago back redoing my making great progress. Very professional thing. No existing electrolytic. That's not in close state. I have the change. I even got 26 C5 or 390. I startled me about it was it's got this frequency regulator that says take it to 55. And my gosh, it is really, I second the emotion about young kids. It's good stuff. And thanks for your tips on the 560M. I've had a couple of them where the socket arcs and the socket were level with the chassis, and I've got extra tube sockets. I've got some that'll stick up, I don't know, an eighth or a quarter of an inch or something, and I'll replace with that, and then kind of limiting that situation also. And 866s, they go crash, and I put in 3 means tape. And I guess that's it. Sorry for the long talk, but I just had to get some of these problems off my chest. Back to you, John, and thanks to you and Larry for taking it tonight. KOI, TV7, LOPM.
Very good. I got most of that. Your signal is kind of light, but I was able to get most of it. And congratulations on your new acquisitions. It's always fun to rebuild the shack. It's kind of an adventure, like a big Easter egg hunt, but a little more expensive than Easter eggs, I guess. But it's all good. And a couple of comments. I think it was N5VIM Tony that mentioned a fellow in the Bay Area, the person I'm familiar with who manufactures some boards is Young Kim, and I've got his little voltage regulator boards about the size of a postage stamp in my 516 F2 power supply. It takes the medium voltage and puts it right where it should be at 275. And so I will check him out as far as 30L1 boards. He sells a 30L1 board. I like the guy. He's a good guy. Okay, so onward. We got another 2, and then we'll call it an evening. And if you guys can't tell, I am really fatigued. I'm just not myself tonight, and so I'm going to make it a 1 or a 2 Chardonnay after the Roundtable Festival for me. So over to Skip, W6LGL, and he'll turn over to Bob, AK6R.
Okay, thank you, John. W6KLI and the SSB Roundtable, the 6 Little Green Lights, the 6LGL in Santa Monica by the Bay. Interesting thing. I just want to remind some of the stuff I've probably been realized over and over again, but before the basics, power supplies, all this, any power supply, is made, especially 60s, 70s, I had the 3-wire cord with the green ground plug, and that's a good safety measure. Second, when changing out the capacitors, those who buy the all-box and other kits generally get the proper device for that, but sometimes in a couple of different items I had that are not available, and when you get the capacitors, most now are rated at 450 volts and high capacity, 100 to 100 microfarads. And you've got to put in equalizing dropping resistor, and I am highly in favor of the new well-made metal film, at least 1 watt, sometimes 2 watts, and 100K or whatever that you need. These are not too good for using receivers, where you do the noise figure because there's R inscribed and they do have some inductance. But as far as voltage regulation and resistance, they're much more reliable than the old carbon resistors. So, and then you like to strap everything together, especially the amplifier and transceiver, with a separate silver-plated braid that can handle. The important thing is to keep everything at the same potential. And use a common ground wherever you're running into. But important things to connect the individual items, the amplifier and tuner, whatever it is, and your let's say the transceiver, etc. All bonded together. Low resistance. So this is even more critical for solid state stuff. Keep the RF and the potential is low. Okay, this old stuff, and I'm probably repeating myself. 73, I want to finish watching the World Series game. Dodgers are losing 6-1, and they may not be able to pull this one off. It kind of looks like they're running out of time. But after yesterday's record 18-inning game, the Dodgers really ran into opposition team there from Toronto. 73s, everybody. Thank you for raising up that song. Help you feel better. And hey, everybody have a nice week. K6, thank you very much. Get the problem out of it.
Okay, Bob, it's your turn. K6R. K6R, are you there? K6KY. Well, I guess not. So I'm going to call it an evening. I do have two comments that I think were not made that I would like to make. One is somebody mentioned the procedure they go through first to the power supply, and this is the two power supplies built into the rig as well. The very, very first thing I do when a fuse is I check the fuse, because believe it or not, some people have put a 20-amp fuse where a 4-amp is called for. Could be a disaster. And the other thing is discharge the electrolytic. See you guys later. K6KY.
Hey, John, before you go, W60Q here. I got a comment for you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the 3001 that you're having problems with, you know about the tube types, right, with the 811s that manufacturer is important?
Okay, I missed what you said. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, your selection of 811s for the 3001 is important. Are you aware of that whole thing?
No, I'm not, but I've got to tell you, I have some.
I've got about 8 spares, and they're all the military 811s.
Okay, like RCA's new old stock, that's what you want to use, or the RCA's or something like that. A lot of the Chinese tubes, they can't be mounted horizontally. And that leads to problems with the internal elements sagging and shorting. That causes a lot of sparking and smoke. And typically what will happen is the grid resistor will blow. The grid resistor is a 47 ohm resistor, and it was essentially inserted as a fuse to protect the power transformers. So, because those transformers are fragile and they're expensive if you got to replace one. So anyway, that's something to be aware of. Is that the 47 ohm resistors? Check those out, the grid resistors, and the types of tubes that you got in there. Go ahead.
Oh, that's very good information. And I was aware of that issue with 572Bs. I was not aware of the issue with 811s, but Chinese products some of them have their problems. There's no question about it. What I've got is a good supply of U.S.-made 811As. And Dennis, I've got to tell you, I just, as people are talking here, I start pulling the 3001 out of its operating position. It's about 3/4 out right now.